Good morning, everyone, and thank you for inviting me to your training program. My name is Jacqueline Rostein. I am the director of the Wisconsin Board of Bar Examiners, and I think it's helpful to put our agency into context before I tell you a little bit about CLE and the reviews we do internally for approvals and/or denials. So, I often have to explain to people what the BBE is not, beginning with we are not the State Bar of Wisconsin. We are not the Office of Lawyer Regulation. And we are not your father's Oldsmobile. We are, however, an arm of the Wisconsin Supreme Court. We have 11 members on our board, 5 of whom are Wisconsin Bar members, meaning they are licensed attorneys. We have 3 people who are a combination of representatives from the judiciary branch and the law school. So we have 1 member from the University of Wisconsin Law School representing that school, and we also have 1 from Marquette University Law School, as well as 1 member formally of the judiciary, although sometimes our Wisconsin bar members are also part of the judiciary. Currently, we have Circuit Court Judge Ken Cutts, who's on our board, along with Judge Dykman, who is currently retired from the Wisconsin Court of Appeals. Additionally, we have 3 public members who serve on our board. We have coins, meaning 2 sides. On the one side, we've got continuing legal education, which I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about today. But we also handle bar admissions. And so there are 3 ways to gain admission under our existing provisions. 1, via diploma privilege. A second way is through taking the bar exam, which is being administered next week. And proof of practice. So if you've practiced in another jurisdiction 3 out of 5 years, and you can show that you've been substantially practicing and you get through the character and fitness evaluation, you're likely to gain admission here in Wisconsin. Today, however, we're going to focus on the continuing legal education component of our office. At the height of course approvals, we deal with about 9,500 annually, which is an awful lot. That's probably down, that number's probably down a little bit. But we obviously do thousands of reviews annually. And so the information that I share with you today is going to be particularly important, because if you can give it to us in as accurate a manner possible with all of the information we request, it makes the approval process a lot smoother. We also handle continuing legal education reporting. As you all know in this room, every 2 years you've got to report 30 credits to us, 3 of which need to be ethics and professional responsibility. And we deal with about 8,400 attorneys reporting annually. And the applicable rules for continuing legal education can be found in the Supreme Court Rules, Chapter 31, and also in the accompanying appendix CLE 1.01 through 1401. And what I want to spend a little bit of time talking to you today about is this course approval form. And I'm going to ask Pat if you could help me distribute that.
You got it. Tim and I can take care of this.
Okay, great. There's probably some extras. So I know this is a little bit hard to read, and that's why I'm going to distribute hard copies to you so that you can take a look at these as well. And I'll just wait a moment so that those can get sent around the room. I should have plenty, so you should feel free to have.
Tim needs one, huh?
Well, I need
a
one.
second.
Oh, you need one? Oh. That's right. I'm going to wallpaper his Cute with this.
So one question while we're waiting. Has the character and fitness bar gotten any higher since I was admitted?
The character and fitness is always an active component of our office. And we actually have, well, one matter presently on appeal to the Wisconsin Supreme Court.
Ooh.
They're rare, by the way, but we do have one up on appeal. So as you can see, this is what we refer to in our office as the Form 2. And the Form 2 is the mechanism by which CLE approval requests are made to our office. First and foremost, we want you to identify the organization that's sponsoring the activity. So, you know, if for instance, you're a section, fine, fill that out. Sometimes the State Bar tends to be a little bit different because the State Bar Pinnacle actually has what we refer to as General Program Approval Authority. So they don't generally have to submit information to us about the details of their course except when they're providing ethics and professional responsibility credit. But most other organizations have to identify the sponsorship. We ask for a contact number, and certainly you can feel free to also include an email address. We ask you for the title of whatever it is you're going to be presenting and the dates on which you're going to be presenting it. Because the way our database works, we, if you want to search for something in it, you have to search by date, unfortunately not by title. So the dates are pretty important for you to include. And if in fact you're going to be repeating it as an on-demand seminar, we want that information as well, because we will include that in our database along with the original presentation dates. We also want to know where you're presenting it, because that information will pop up on our screens as well when attorneys go looking for it or report it. So you can see that under item 6, we ask you to identify the way in which you're going about your presentation. And obviously, if more than one of those applies, then please check it accordingly. Our rules do require that there be a moderator and at least 2 attorneys. So if you don't identify the number of attorneys, that can be cause for rejection. So please make certain that you let us know how many attorneys you're expecting and how many in total. Often there are presentations at which it's not purely targeted towards an attorney audience, and that's fine. We are interested in knowing the manner in which materials are going to be distributed. Are you going to be providing hard copies? Are you going to be providing PDFs? Are you going to be providing flash drives to folks? Please let us know that as well. We want to know the total number of instructional minutes that you're going to be providing. And our rules do say that if you're going to have breaks, those are discounted. In Wisconsin, we operate on a 50-minute hour, and we round down, not up. So if you're putting on a presentation for 60 minutes, 50 minutes of it can count towards your hour, and if you want to take a 10-minute break, that's fine. If you want to keep going and keep, wait 90 minutes before taking a break, that's fine as well. We also want you to identify under item 12 when you begin and end, and we also want to know whether or not you're asking for ethics and professional responsibility credit, or what we call in the office EPR credit. And we do scrutinize that. Any questions about the form itself or what it is we're interested in seeing from those who are submitting this information to us? The other, yes.
2 questions.
Yes.
When
Hold on,
organization is
hold on.
supposed to.
Oh.
We're recording this.
For co-sponsoring something for out of state, out of country, I know that you have a number of affiliate sort of automatic approval type things. Should we be doing something in addition? Or we've always traditionally relied on that. And then secondly, if you've got a half-day program with 3 presenters, each of whom is going to do a third of their portion on ethics, how would that be submitted and would it be approved?
I'll take your first question first, which is if you're co-sponsoring, how should that be submitted? I guess if you're co-sponsoring with a recognized entity that's a GPA provider, is that really what you're asking me, or?
ABA as an example, or the IBA.
Okay, so the ABA could submit the title for approval, or if the state bar is involved and you want it to come through the state bar, that's another option as well. They're not mutually exclusive, and sometimes what happens is we get multiple approval requests from more than one entity. So for instance, individual attorneys can also make submissions requesting approval, and that happens as well. So there's not a foolproof mechanism. There are multiple ways in which it can be done. Now, in terms of your second question, if there are multiple presenters putting on EPR components, there is a requirement that it be minimally 50 minutes. So if you're meeting that criterion, then it should be fine. If you're not, or you're trying to be innovative in the way in which you're presenting it, I guess I would suggest that you contact our office and we talk more about how you're going to present it.
So 15-minute increments?
Not generally okay,
Yeah, because I think the rule actually says 50 continuous minutes.
right?
So my understanding of it was always that if you had 25 here and then you did another half an hour of something else and another 25, that didn't comply.
Typically, yeah. Now, I have also enclosed a copy of the rules along with the Form 2. So you've got those available for your review as well. I'm going to just quickly forward. There are
We
a
do have
number
one
of-
other question. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
oh,
over
I'm
here.
sorry. Yeah.
In working with other state bars, I know some of them have a requirement about when you can serve food and beverage during a program. Sometimes they say, if you have a lunch portion, you can include that towards your CLE threshold. I just wanted to confirm Wisconsin does not have something similar to that. Is that correct?
We don't have anything exactly like that, but if you're having a luncheon and it's purely a luncheon with no featured speaker, then obviously that wouldn't be able to count towards credit. But we don't have anything that specifically addresses it other than breaks and so forth, which would be excluded from credit. Okay, so I understand that Tim stole my thunder a little bit earlier about some no-brainer courses, but I do want to point these out because I think they can be illustrative, and then we can talk a little bit about what falls into the gray area. For example, and these are actual examples, by the way. The first of which is long-term care and the law, sponsored by the American Health Lawyers Association. They are anticipating 300 attorneys to attend that program with an overall attendance of 500. So I'm certain that they're probably going to get administrators and so forth attending it as well. They submitted a detailed program, meaning an agenda with the times, and they identify the topics, they identify the speakers, and then they provide biographical information. So as you can imagine, this one was approved without issue. And they did seek EPR credit for 2 hours, and they were granted that. Now, we got a rather interesting request from the Kimberly-Clark Corporation called Corporate Athlete Program. And that was expected to have 8 attorneys in attendance with a total of 17 people present. And let me just read briefly from the outline that was submitted to us. From 8:30 to 10, it was going to be energy management. From 10 to 10:10, you got to change into your workout clothes. From 10:10 to 10:30, there was a resistance band workout, followed by a recovery and snack break. At 11:30, you had nutrition for energy management, and by 12:30, you were at lunch. I'm not going to go further in detail about this, although there is actually more. Needless to say, this program was denied CLE credit. But somebody made the request. I think sometimes people figure, let's throw it up against the wall and see if it'll stick. That one didn't stick so well. The Wisconsin Appellate Cases of 2014 presented by the Honorable Charles Dykman. This is an annual event that he does across the state at various bar associations. It's a 1-hour presentation. He does not request EPR credit because most of the cases that he presents don't involve the OLR and things of that sort. And that was granted CLE credit. I beg your pardon?
Did he recuse himself?
Well, he's retired, so did he recuse himself from having to? Okay, so that's a really good question. Did he recuse himself from deciding about this? The way it operates in our office, our staff makes the majority of the determinations, but we do have a handful of CLE presentations that go before the full board when the staff or I are unable to make a determination about whether or not it should count for credit. So this is a true no-brainer, and so no, he didn't have to recuse himself on this one. Finally, as an example, this came from a Milwaukee area law firm. I won't identify them, but it was the new associate retreat. And for example, they wanted to talk about 501(c)(3)s, not for clients, but for themselves. They wanted to talk about non-legal volunteering. They wanted to talk about billable hours. And so, needless to say, although important in the context of a law firm and understandable for training new associates, that one did not receive CLE credit from our office. So I think I've probably gone over my time, but I do want to just ask if you do have any additional questions. I'm happy to try and address them. And I see one over on my right.
Well, one question I had about your approval is you have a very nice provision on the website. If you attend CLE in another state and that state grants CLE credit, you'll grant CLE credit. But what you won't do is if that very same program is offered by webinar or on demand, you won't grant credit. And I know that's the way the rules are written, but I was wondering if there's a rationale behind that and any thought to changing that since so many programs now are webinars or on demand.
So the rule says if you're going to have an on-demand course and get credit for it in Wisconsin, the course first has to be put on live. And so that's where that hang-up comes, and there isn't currently a movement afoot to amend that rule to change it. Another question?
So when we're planning CLEs, at what point should we submit this to you?
Well, that's a great question, and you're welcome to submit your agenda materials to us in advance of the course being presented. And oftentimes people like to do that to ensure that they're going to get actual credit. or if there are concerns or questions or problems, they can get them ironed out in advance of the presentation. So my suggestion is, if you know when you're going to be putting on the program and your materials are able to be reviewed, then the earlier the better, because we're going to start to get into what I call the crunch time, where, you know, we're closing in on the end of the year, and people want to take credits because they'll need to report their hours. So we get a slew of approval requests in the last quarter of the year, and it takes us a while to get through them. And if they're denied, and then you want to appeal that to the full board, that takes some time, and it's possible that people won't then be able to use those credits until after it goes through the full approval process.
If you're doing the same program again and you do it like every year with, you know, I want to say exactly the same slides except for the date, you still do the full form as opposed to having a second date listed when you, or if you know in advance, I guess you could do that.
We will accept it for the, if you have multiple dates within a given year, then we'll accept it. But if you're going to put on a different, the same presentation in a second year, then we will request a new approval form. Any other questions that I can answer? Well, thanks very much.